Caught on camera, my drunk brother tried to force himself on my wife at our cousin's wedding. My mom still says he deserves forgiveness. My brother pursued and followed my girlfriend during a wedding. My parents defended him. He's currently in prison for domestic violence. Anuran began acting improperly as soon as Victoria, 25 female, my girlfriend, arrived, making her quite uncomfortable. He virtually pushed our mother out of the way to be the first to hug Victoria, clinging on far too long until she had to physically move away. Throughout dinner, he kept finding excuses to touch her arm or shoulder, cracking fake inside jokes that made no sense because they had only recently met, and actually pressing past me several times to sit next to her. Until he absolutely crossed the line and attempted to feed her with his own fork while maintaining intense eye contact. Victoria was clearly uncomfortable, but she remained courteous because it was our first family meeting, and she wanted to make a good impression. Anuran spent the entire evening telling me embarrassing memories from my youth, twisting them to make me appear like a miserable fool. He told a wholly made story about having to safeguard my high school girlfriend from my alleged emotional abuse, which never occurred. Victoria knew these things weren't genuine because I'd already told her about my teenage years, but my parents just nodded along as if Anuran was telling the truth. After dinner, things worsened. Victoria offered to assist in the cleanup, hoping to be helpful. I was helping my father move some boxes in the garage when I remembered I hadn't seen Victoria in a while. I found her in the kitchen with Anuran, blocking her way to the door. He had her cornered by the sink, telling her that she deserved someone more fascinating than his boring, unstable elder brother. He was standing far too near, with his hand on the counter next to her hip. When I walked in, Victoria had already told him to back off twice. When she spotted me, she seemed relieved, and instantly came to stand next to me. Anuran shrugged it off as if it were a great joke, but I could feel Victoria trembling. My fiancée Victoria and I had been dating for 8 months, and everything was going great until Anuran decided to completely ruin our lives with his obsessive behavior. I suppose I should explain our family dynamic so that this makes sense. Anuran and I were raised in a tiny Minnesota town by upper-middle-class parents. Our parents both work in real estate and make good money, but they've always prioritized maintaining appearances over actual family bonds. Anuran was born when I was 3, and he immediately became the center of our parents' universe. He never did anything wrong, and everything was always my fault. Growing up, Anuran exhibited some extremely alarming conduct that my parents simply overlooked. When he was 6, he purposefully smashed my game console because I refused to let him play when he wanted to. Instead of disciplining him, my parents bought him his own, and told me that I should have shared more. When he was 12, he killed my pet hamster by feeding it chocolate, despite knowing it was harmful. But my parents stated it was an accident, and that I shouldn't have had dogs if I wasn't going to properly care for them. In high school, he spread allegations about me cheating on my girlfriend, which led to our breakup. My parents claimed he was simply being protective of her. This trend has persisted throughout our adult lives. Anuran still remains at home with our parents, working at my father's real estate firm, and generally doing whatever he wants. He ruined every relationship I tried to form. My previous girlfriend's family believed I had a gambling addiction, which was absolutely wrong. Before that, he told another woman that I had cheated on all of my past relationships, which was also incorrect. My parents would either justify his acts or accuse me of exaggeration. When I met Victoria, I resolved to do things differently. I kept our relationship a secret from my family for the first 3 months, to protect her from Anuran's regular techniques. Victoria is truly the best thing that has happened to me. She's intelligent, caring, and works as a pediatric nurse at our community hospital. We met in the hospital cafe while I was grabbing coffee and visiting a coworker who had surgery. She was on her lunch break when we started talking about the awful hospital coffee. After a few more coffee discussions, we began dating, and everything seemed great. Victoria knows everything about my family history, because I wanted her to be prepared. She was the one who pushed me to try to introduce her to them, stating that things might be different now that we're all grown-ups. One of my favorite things about her is that she is always looking for the best in others. I eventually consented to introduce Victoria to my family during a dinner party last month, and then everything fell apart. The main issue began a few days after the dinner. Victoria started receiving weird calls and texts from numbers she didn't recognize. At first, she responded with heavy breathing or immediate hang-ups. Then they began leaving more unpleasant voicemails, labeling her stuck-up and frigid for turning down a greater offer. Some letters included exact data about her work schedule and what she was wearing that day, indicating that someone was following her. Victoria didn't realize it at first, but I recognized some of the voices as Anuran's old high school friends, a group of guys who still come out with him and basically do whatever he says since his parents give him money to toss around. When Victoria banned those numbers, they simply began phoning from new numbers. Then Anuran's buddies started showing up at the hospital, pretending to be visitors but actually hanging out in the pediatric ward where Victoria works. They would look at her for hours, saying things just loud enough for her to hear. Last week, one of them followed her back to her car after her night job. She contacted me crying from her car, unable to drive home for fear of being followed. I had to go pick her up and drive her car home, with my friend following in his car to ensure we weren't being followed. Victoria has been experiencing panic attacks before her shifts, and her co-workers have realized something is up. Yesterday I finally had enough evidence to approach Anuran directly. I had voicemail recordings, text screenshots, and hospital security camera footage that showed his friends stalking Victoria. I visited our parents' house, where Anuran still resides, and showed him everything. He just sat there with a smug sneer on his face while I spoke, then looked me dead in the eyes and stated he had no idea what I was talking about. But perhaps if Victoria wasn't so stuck, others wouldn't feel compelled to teach her a lesson. Something inside of me snapped when he said that, and I hit him in the face. Anuran began crying as if I had tried to kill him, despite the fact that his nose was just slightly bloody. Our parents rushed in, and of course they were furious with me, not Anuran. They didn't even look at the evidence I tried to provide to them. Mom was in tears about her baby child being harmed, while Dad screamed about how I've always been jealous of Anuran and need professional therapy with my anger issues. When I tried to describe the harassment, Mom responded that Victoria must have led Anuran on during dinner and was now playing the victim, because she was caught flirting with him. Dad urged me to leave his house and not return until I had apologized to Anuran and cleared my brain. I am writing this from Victoria's flat, where I have been since last night. She finally fell asleep in the other room after crying for hours, because she is frightened of going to work tomorrow. So far, her supervisor has been understanding, but Victoria is concerned that if this situation continues, she may lose her job. She enjoys working with the children in the pediatric department, and should not have to give it up because of my insane brother. I simply don't know what to do anymore. Every time I believe Anuran can't go much lower, he proves me wrong. Our parents are absolutely encouraging his actions and deceiving both me and Victoria about what is happening. The authorities will not take action unless they have more clear evidence linking Anuran directly to the harassment. Victoria is terrified, her job is at stake, and my family is acting as if we are the ones causing difficulties. Has anyone dealt with a situation like this? How do I keep Victoria safe while dealing with my toxic family? Should I do more to capture everything that happens? Any advice would be greatly appreciated, as I'm at my wit's end here. Update 1. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone who left comments on my first post. Reading all of your replies made me realize how serious the problem is, and Victoria and I have been attempting to follow the advice many of you gave about documenting everything and pursuing legal action. Unfortunately, things have become worse in the last 2 weeks, and I need to rant about it. We followed the recommendation to go to the police. Victoria and I spent hours gathering proof, including screenshots of all the threatening texts, voicemail recordings, and hospital surveillance footage that showed Anuran's buddies loitering around. We also received written testimonies from 3 of Victoria's co-workers who witnessed the stalking conduct. The police officer we spoke with was concerned at first, particularly about workplace harassment. But then everything became tricky. Tyler, Anuran's best buddy and one of the major guys participating in Victoria's harassment, happens to be the son of a local police sergeant. When we stated Tyler's name, the officer's entire demeanor shifted. He began to argue that without solid proof that Anuran was coordinating things, there was little they could do. He noted that Victoria was misinterpreting pleasant attention from men who were simply hanging out at the hospital for valid reasons. He even had the guts to inquire whether Victoria had somehow piqued their interest. We wanted to talk with another police officer, ideally a female cop, but they gave us the runaround. They eventually indicated they would issue warnings to the people we could identify from the security film, But that was all they could do in the absence of specific evidence of real threats. It felt like an absolute waste of time. My parents' reaction was far worse than I anticipated. The day after we went to the police, Anuran arrived at their house with a black eye, claiming I had struck him again. I had not seen him since the night I punched him. 2 weeks ago. Of course, my parents immediately believed him. My mother contacted me, weeping frantically about how I was out of control and attempting to wreck Anuran's life. She said that going to the police demonstrated that I was intentionally attempting to damage his future over a foolish mistake. Then my father called. He was infuriated. He threatened to cut me off financially, which would have been terrifying if I were still reliant on them. Fortunately, I have a solid career in software development and my own apartment. He also threatened to fire me from the family real estate business, despite the fact that I'd never worked there. That was Anuran's job. It truly demonstrated how they don't regard me as my own person, but rather as an extension of Anuran's life. The true calamity occurred last weekend. My mom kept phoning and messaging, stating they wanted to work things out as a family. She assured me that Anuran was sorry about everything, and wished to apologize to both me and Victoria. She stated that they had discussed limits with him, and that he was aware of his inappropriate behavior. After discussing it with Victoria, we agreed to give them one chance to make things right. That was an enormous error. We arrived at my parents' place for what was supposed to be a family meal to sort things out. I knew there was something wrong from the moment we walked in. The house was packed with people. My parents, Anuran, our aunt and uncle, who always support Anuran, and worst of all, Tyler, and 2 other men who had been stalking Victoria at work. My mother called it a family intervention. They all attacked Victoria's character in turn for 2 hours, while Anuran sat there looking smug. My mother went on a long rant about how Victoria was clearly envious of Anuran's good looks and success. What success? And had flirted with him at dinner that first night. She claimed Victoria made up the harassment because she felt sorry about leading Anuran on and wanted to cover her tracks. My aunt stated that Victoria was probably used to getting attention from guys at work, and had misconstrued nice conduct as stalking because she felt bad. Anuran played his role flawlessly, seeming heartbroken and perplexed as to why Victoria would fabricate such nasty things about him. He kept stating how much he had looked forward to having a sister-in-law, and how saddened he was that she was attempting to turn me against him. Tyler and his buddies backed him up, claiming they had simply gone to the hospital to see Tyler's ailing grandma, who supposedly transfers between floors and apartments every day. The worst thing was when they began questioning Victoria's mental state. They mentioned how she sometimes works night shifts, implying that sleep deprivation was making her crazy. They discussed how hard it must be to deal with sick children, hinting that she might be transferring her work stress into harmless interactions with Anuran and his buddies. My mother even had the guts to recommend a therapist who could help Victoria overcome her inclination to generate drama. Victoria attempted to defend herself at first, politely detailing the harassment, and giving them the messages and voicemails again. But they talked over her, disregarded her proof as misunderstandings, or said she had somehow triggered things. Tyler began outlining in detail what Victoria had been wearing on specific days at work, demonstrating he had been following her, and my parents behaved as if this was evidence that Victoria was attempting to attract attention. It all became too much when they invited Tyler and his pals to join us for dessert, claiming they wanted to demonstrate how nice young men they were. Victoria was having problems breathing, and had to leave the room. When I tried to pursue her, my mother grabbed my arm and told me it was time to choose between my true family and a girl who was clearly unstable and trying to cause trouble. I decided on Victoria. We left quickly, and I haven't spoken to my family since that night. Anuran's buddies have escalated their harassment, spreading stories at Victoria's workplace about her mental instability and a history of false allegations. Her supervisor summoned her to a meeting yesterday to discuss concerns about workplace drama. Even while he appeared empathetic, he warned her that the interruption was beginning to damage her job performance, and advised her to consider transferring to another department or hospital. We've engaged a lawyer to assist us in obtaining restraining orders, but the procedure is slow. Victoria has been looking into employment at other hospitals, and one of her old co-workers has volunteered to assist her in getting a job at a hospital in a city some 300 miles away. I hate that we're being forced to take such harsh measures, but I can't stomach seeing Victoria constantly terrified and stressed. She now sobs before every shift, and has lost weight because she is too anxious to eat properly. I simply don't know what to do anymore. Every attempt to address this reasonably has failed. My family is absolutely crazy. The cops are ineffective, and it appears that Anuran is winning. How can you fight back when everyone is so willing to think the worst about you, and the best about your abuser? Update 2. I wish I could bring better news, but everything has completely gone apart after what happened at my cousin Holly's wedding last weekend. I've been trying to comprehend everything over the last few days before posting this update. What was supposed to be a pleasant family celebration turned into an utter horror, with Anuran handcuffed, and our family permanently divided. Let me start with some context. Holly has always been the one family member, aside from my grandfather, who saw through Anuran's deception. When we were kids, she caught Anuran torturing her cat and informed everyone, but my parents convinced us that she was lying for attention. She's never forgotten it, and she's been completely supportive of me throughout Victoria's situation. She even drafted a lengthy statement for our lawyer describing Anuran's history of inappropriate behavior. When Holly issued us the wedding invitation, Victoria and I were hesitant to go. But Holly called us directly, and assured us that she had only invited Anuran because her parents insisted, and that she had hired extra security specifically to keep an eye on him. She also sat us at a table with her husband's family, far from my parents and Anuran. We assumed that with all of the witnesses and security present, Anuran would not try anything dumb. We were mistaken. The event went well, owing in large part to Anuran's role as a groomsman. Holly's husband is our cousin from the other side of the family and was unaware of the turmoil. Everything appeared to be in order at first glance. Anuran sat at the family table with our parents, while we were across the room with Holly's in-laws. Victoria was finally beginning to unwind and enjoy herself for the first time in weeks. Victoria went to the bathroom at about 9 p.m. She had been gone for around 10 minutes, when I saw Anuran was no longer at his table. Something seemed wrong, so I went to check on Victoria. As I walked towards the restrooms, I heard Victoria scream. When I started sprinting, Holly's husband Miller and his brother turned the bend ahead of me. They discovered Anuran pushing Victoria against the wall in the hallway outside the restrooms, attempting to force himself on her while she struggled. He had one hand over her mouth, and the other tightly gripping her arm, causing bruises. Miller and his brother pulled Anuran off Victoria soon as I arrived. Victoria shook and cried. Her dress was torn at the shoulder, and obvious bruises appeared on her arms. Anuran was clearly inebriated, and began ranting about how Victoria had been taunting him all night. She hadn't even gone near him, and how she had followed him to the hallway. She got there first. Miller's brother, a constable in another city, instantly contacted the local police, while Miller assisted Victoria to a private room where Holly and her mother were attempting to calm her down. This is when things got even worse, if that is possible. When the cops arrived, my parents attempted to stop them from detaining Sam. My mother was yelling about how it was all a misunderstanding, that Victoria must have led Anuran astray, and that they shouldn't ruin his life over a little drunken mistake. My father attempted to physically prevent the officers from handcuffing Anuran, claiming that they should handle this as a family affair. Anuran alternated between wailing about how Victoria had deceived him and threatening everyone, stating none of us knew what he was capable of. He appeared absolutely unhinged. When they eventually got him into the police car, he began ranting that Victoria was a whore who had been asking for it since they first met. Several guests captured the entire outburst on their phones. The fallout has been harsh. My parents are on a frenzy, calling everyone in the family and spreading their version of events. According to them, Victoria took Anuran to a remote location, made advances on him, and then shouted assault when he rebuffed her. They claim she staged the entire incident to exact revenge on Anuran for revealing her falsehoods about the harassment. They even say Miller and his brother beat Anuran up before the cops arrived, which they did not, and that Victoria caused the bruises herself. The one bright spot is that Holly's wedding film captured Anuran following Victoria to the restroom on camera. With the injuries, several witnesses, and footage of Anuran's meltdown during the arrest, our lawyer believes we have a strong case. Several relatives who attended the wedding have spoken out about Anuran's actions throughout the night, which included him making obscene comments about Victoria and following her around the reception. My parents are now threatening to disown me unless Victoria drops the allegations. They have been phoning and messaging non-stop, alternating between guilt trips for destroying the family and threatening to damage my inheritance. They even showed up at my apartment yesterday, generating a disturbance that prompted my neighbors to contact the police. My mother was screaming about how I was sending her kid to jail, and my father promised to ensure that I never worked in this state again. Victoria and I have reached a decision. She accepted a job offer at a hospital 300 miles away, and I've planned to work remotely for my firm. We're moving at the end of next month. Many people may believe we are fleeing, but we simply need to escape the toxicity and start over somewhere else. Holly understands and has agreed to keep us posted on any family developments that we should be aware of. The most difficult aspect of all of this is knowing that my family will never accept Aneurin needs help. Even after seeing him abuse someone at a wedding in front of witnesses, they continue to defend him and blame the victim. I've often wondered if things would have been different if someone had intervened when we were youngsters, but I guess we will never know. Right now, all I need to do is protect Victoria and construct our new life together, away from Aneurin and my parents' supporting behavior. Update 3. I hadn't planned to submit another update, but something happened yesterday that I feel compelled to relate. After 4 years of fortunate silence from my family, I received a hysterical phone call from my mother that left me feeling both vindicated and profoundly sad. First, a quick update on Victoria's and my current situation. We married 2 years ago in a small ceremony attended by Holly's family and Victoria's relatives. We purchased a home in our new location, and Victoria is now the top pediatric nurse at her hospital. I am currently working remotely for the same company, but was promoted to senior developer last year. We're expecting our first kid, a beautiful girl, in 3 months. Life has been serene and cheerful, which makes what I'm about to say much more frightening. Yesterday afternoon, I was in a conference when my phone started ringing with calls from my mother. I generally disregard strange numbers because my family frequently purchases new phones to try to contact us, but this time she left a message that sounded quite frantic. When I called back, she was crying so hard that I couldn't understand her. Aneurin married a woman named Lily last year. We were unaware of it because we had not communicated with that side of the family since the wedding disaster. Aneurin apparently met Lily at church, and their families promptly planned for their marriage. My mother was overjoyed that Aneurin had found a Christian woman who understood him, and that they were all content until last week. Lily's co-worker called the police last Thursday, after she was absent from work for 3 days. When cops conducted a welfare check, they discovered Lily with terrible injuries. She had 2 broken ribs, a shattered wrist, and several bruises across her body. But here's what really got me. When the police investigated, they learned that my father had been assisting Aneurin in concealing the abuse for months. Lily eventually broke down and told the police everything. Aneurin had begun assaulting her only 2 months after their marriage. Every time she threatened to leave or inform someone, my father would intervene, using his real estate contacts to harass Lily's family about their mortgage, or threatening to fire her from her work at one of his friends' companies. He even persuaded Lily's parents that she was mentally unwell while fabricating stories about Aneurin, employing the same tactics they employed against Victoria. The final event occurred when Lily received a promotion at work, which would have provided her with financial independence. Aneurin lost it and beat her so hard that she was unable to work. When she called my father for aid, he advised her to apply ice and remember her wedding vows. That's when her co-worker became involved and phoned the police. Aneurin and my father were both arrested, one for domestic abuse and the other for witness intimidation and conspiracy. Mom urged me to come back and help with everything. She kept stressing that family members should stick together in times of distress, that Aneurin and Dad needed my help, and that Lily was clearly exaggerating things, just like Victoria had. I lost it. I informed her how I felt about her allowing Aneurin's actions throughout his life. I reminded her of what they did to Victoria, how they continued to back Aneurin despite witnessing him assault her at Holly's wedding. I asked her if she had ever considered that, if they had gotten Aneurin help when he was younger, or held him accountable for his behavior, Lily would not be in the hospital today. Mom completely broke down, admitting that they should have done something sooner. She revealed that she and Dad had always known Aneurin had problems, but they believed they were protecting him by keeping everything hidden. Too little. Too late. I hung up and blocked her new number. Holly called me later to clarify some information she had received from family. Apparently Lily's parents are upset and regret not believing her sooner. They absolutely support her filing accusations against both Aneurin and my father. The police are also looking into additional potential victims. as numerous of Anuran's ex-girlfriends have come forward with similar allegations of abuse and stalking. Victoria suggested that we contact Lily through Holly and offer her assistance if she requires it, which we will most likely do. Victoria noted that she was fortunate to have assistance when dealing with Anuran, and Lily may require someone who understands what she is going through. Some may believe I'm being cold toward my parents, but I've learned that encouraging toxic behavior simply creates more victims. My family had numerous opportunities to adapt, but decided not to. Now they can face the repercussions of their decisions without my assistance. My current task is to safeguard my own family, my wife, our unborn baby, and the quiet life we've made away from their toxicity. Update 4. Many individuals have messaged me asking for an update on the situation with Anuran, my father, and Lily. So here's what happened over the last 6 months. First, excellent news from my end. 3 months ago, Victoria and I welcomed our daughter, Emma. She's completely healthy and stunningly lovely. Being parents has been incredible, and it has strengthened our belief that breaking touch with my problematic family was the best decision. Holly and her husband came to see Emma last month, and watching them with her confirmed what true family love looks like. Now for updates on Anuran and my father's cases. Holly has kept us informed because she is still in contact with her extended relatives. Anuran accepted a plea deal this month. He will serve 8 years in jail for extreme domestic abuse, with the potential of parole after 5 years. My father's lawsuit is still ongoing, but his lawyers appear to be negotiating a settlement as well. His real estate license has been suspended pending the investigation, and the majority of his business partners have parted ways with him. My mother's progress has been the most startling. After our previous phone chat, she began therapy. According to Holly, she has left the family home and filed for divorce from my father. She gave me a 12-page letter last week apologizing for everything, including condoning Anuran's actions throughout his life, failing to protect me as a child, and most importantly, how they harmed Victoria. She admitted that she and Dad had essentially produced Anuran the monster by never holding him accountable. I have not responded to the letter yet. Part of me appreciates that she is finally confronting reality. But it is too little, too late. Where was this understanding when Anuran was hurting animals as a child? Or while he was stalking Victoria? Or when they witnessed him abuse Holly at her wedding? Victoria and I are talking about whether we should someday allow her to have a supervised relationship with Emma, but that is years away, if it occurs at all. Lily has been in contact with us via Holly. She is doing better. She's staying with her sister in another state and undergoing extensive therapy. She has filed for divorce and is completely cooperating with the prosecutors. According to Holly, several other women have spoken up about Anuran abusing them in the past, including 2 from his church. The police are also examining these cases. Lily's parents have been wonderfully supportive once the truth was revealed. They openly apologized to her for not believing her sooner, and severed all connections with my parents. They're even collaborating with domestic violence organizations to help other families identify the indications of abuse and manipulation. The extended family has basically been divided into 2 camps. The majority of our younger relatives and cousins have supported us and Lily, while the older generation continues to make excuses for Anuran and my dad. Holly's mother, my aunt, founded a family therapy group for relatives who want to understand how things got so bad, and how to make things better for future generations. Victoria and I are focused on our daughter and our life here. Victoria returned to work part-time last week, and she has been elevated to Director of Pediatric Nursing. I'm currently working remotely, but I'm considering starting my own software consulting business soon. We've established a lovely community here, complete with great friends and chosen family. Sometimes I think about contacting my mother or responding to her letter. But then I look at Emma, and remember how my parents would have wanted me to let Anuran around her if we were still in contact, arguing he deserved a second chance. That idea alone proves that we made the proper decision in keeping away. The pattern of abuse and enabling in my family comes to a stop with my generation. Emma will grow up in an environment that values healthy relationships and respects limits. Cutting off toxic family members is sometimes the best thing you can do for your children, no matter how painful it is.